This episode of the podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. Visit patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to help support your favorite new movie podcasts. Now, let's roll that reel.
But the week before, I think something, I don't know, but it's been far too long, Zach, since we've recorded.
Maybe it was the apocalypse. For a second, we were like, oh no, it's the apocalypse. And then Idris Elba showed up. It's like, we're canceling the apocalypse.
Oh, of course, Idris Elba. He's saving the day every weekend. He's been in, like, how many things? Because he was in The Suicide Squad, and then he got announced as Knuckles, which was great, and that blew my mind. And then he's in that new Western movie that's coming out, I think, end of this month or beginning of next month.
I think it's this month.
Harder They Fall? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, there's like a whole trilogy of those.
Yeah, because there was the one I mentioned to you that I think is on Jellyfin.
Yeah.
But still have yet to watch it. I have a backlog. I keep requesting movies and then not watching them. I need to just sit down and watch them. I'm currently emptying out my queue/backlog of shows that I've been... Like, I started Raised by Wolves and never finished it, I think. And I got Fargo season 4. I need to finish Snowpiercer because that got a second season.
Raised by Wolves is like the show where every time I am looking for something new to watch and I open up HBO Max, I go, oh yeah, I should probably watch that because that's going to be a quick watch too, and then I just end up watching something.
Because I can't remember if it got renewed for another season, but literally no one talked about it when it came out, and then it just kind of came and went.
Flash in the pan, yeah.
Which is insane because it's a Ridley Scott sci-fi property. And now the guy's like, fuck it. Let's move on and release 2 movies in 2021 within a few months of each other, and they're both Academy hopefuls.
What could possibly go wrong?
Plenty. He gets snubbed all the fucking time, the poor old man. He's won an Academy Award for directing. That was Gladiator, right?
Gladiator.
Yeah. But is that the only time he won?
I think he was nominated for Exodus. Or was that what it was called?
Ew, Exodus? Really?
Let's see.
Ridley Scott Wiki. He has a whole wiki to himself? Oh. Yeah. It's just Wikipedia.
Yes. The lesser known Ridley Ayotte, as I've typed.
Oh, weird. Okay, awards and honors. Shut up. Everybody shut up. Academy Awards, he's won 0. That's insane. He's been nominated 4 times. He's won 2 BAFTAs, 1 Golden Globe, and 2 Emmys, but 0 Academy Awards.
Wow. The Martian didn't win anything?
It was nominated for comedy.
Oh yeah, that was
it was in that musical comedy category.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess it's a difference between his movies. The movies themselves winning something as opposed to the director specifically.
Yeah.
I know Gladiator won something.
Gladiator won like 4 awards. I thought it was one of those films that won like every major category.
I'm checking on it now. No, not influences.
Critical response, blah, blah, accolades. It was nominated in 36 individual ceremonies, including the 73rd Academy Awards, the BAFTA Awards, and the Golden Globes. Of 119 award nominations, the film won 48 prizes. 5 Academy Awards. It was nominated for an additional 7, making a total of 12, including Best Original Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for Joaquin Phoenix, and Best Director for Ridley Scott.
All right, Wikipedia, you're drunk.
No, I think that was it was the first movie to win Best Picture. Yeah, it was the first movie to win Best Picture without winning either a directing or screenwriting award since All the King's Men in 1950. So he was just clearly snubbed that year.
Yeah. They were like, we like everything you do.
What?
But not you.
But you're an old white man, you know? So, who won Best Director in 2000? Hold on. This is all important.
Absolutely.
I think it was Ang Lee, wasn't it? No, it was Steven Soderbergh. That's why. I don't even remember what movie. No, it was for Traffic. Remember Traffic?
No, yeah.
Yeah, so fucking
yes,
Steven, the guy who quits directing like every other year, won Best Director in 2000.
The staying power of Traffic is truly mesmerizing.
Remember Crash as well? Crash won a whole bunch of awards.
Crash, I think actually more people remember because now it's like derided as like ridiculous.
Well, I just remember what I watched the IT Crowd episode earlier where Chris O'Dowd's character Roy is like trying to do Pictionary, and he's at this dinner party, and he's drawing like a car crash, and it's just a whole bunch of scribbles and like really bad squares and stuff. It's Crash. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, because there's a girl at the party whose like face got mashed in from a car crash. She's like, oh, anyway.
I can't remember what show it was, but there was a TV show where there's a bit where they're like talking about cultural insensitivity or something like that, or it's either that or racism, and someone who's white obviously goes like, oh no, you don't get it, like, I'm one of the good ones, I watch Crash.
No, man, I watched Parasite like 13 times, so I'm culturally sensitive.
I wish I could remember what show that was.
Oh, while you're thinking about that, Zach. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lights, Camera, Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I'm Nick, all full of Ridley Scott love Simmons. I pulled that out of my ass. Don't tell anyone.
Oh, wow. Well, you're full of love, so it has to come out eventually.
Yeah, gas.
And I'm Zach, Greenman Smith.
Yeah, okay, we botched this. I'm not starting over, though. And on August 15th... fuck. This is what happens. This is what happens when you don't record for several weeks. You go out of practice.
Yeah, what does it say that 2 episodes in a row now, my middle name's a color?
Is it
I'm phoning it in now.
Well, but you also had the huge gap to think of all of the different middle names you could have had.
Yeah, this tells you that I do not do that.
And on August 15th, 2021, let's dive into the previews. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, you're actually watching us a day late. You can watch us on Patreon at patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to view all of our episodes early, as well as getting premium access to secret exclusive videos. But if you don't want to donate just $1, let's look up what you can buy for $1 on Amazon. $1.
This commemorative dollar bill is $20.
You can buy let's see, you can buy this Wet n Wild Silk Finish Lipstick June Garlet 0.13 ounce lipstick.
Love it.
Yeah, for just 78 cents, and you can have it purchased and delivered to you today. I feel like that's not as fun and entertaining as a video podcast of 2 white guys telling you what movies they loved and enjoyed over the past week.
Well, and let's be real. Like, you could get that Wet n Wild lip gloss, but really everyone knows Physicians Formula is where it's at.
I mean, I don't know.
Black
Zach,
Radiance too.
Zach, are you telling me something I should know? I'm not judging. You do you. But do you wear lip gloss, Zach?
Yeah, haven't you noticed? That's why my lips are always shiny. Probably not, because it's all they're always hidden.
It's covered in facial hair. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's okay. If you're watching us on YouTube, I totally understand. You don't want to donate $1 to your favorite new movie podcast. You can just make sure you hit like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you get notified every time we blast an episode onto YouTube. And if you just don't want to look at our faces, we're also on every podcast service around the globe. That's including Spotify, iTunes, Last.fm, and Pandora Radio. Zach, what have you been watching? We've been gone, actually, before we even get into it. So this is the first episode in a couple of weeks. We, unfortunately, a lot of stuff in our personal lives came up. I was feeling under the weather the week after our previous episode. Nothing serious. Got a cold from a family member who then came to visit me, and then I got sick. It was just gross. A lot of phlegm. It was gross. And I kind of blamed actually, oh, sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. We recorded our previous episode, and then the week after, we're like, hey, you want to go see The Green Knight in theaters? And you're like, sure, why not? And then we went, and it was a packed theater.
Yeah.
And I was really, really surprised that that many people were going to go see The Green Knight. We saw it. We'll get into that here in just a second. But then we came out, and I'm like, I'm not feeling great.
Don't like that.
And then I didn't feel well the next week, and then you didn't feel well the week after that, which I partly blame myself for. Mask up.
Even though it was completely not connected.
No, it's not. No, but
worth mentioning too that we both at this point I am no longer,
Yeah, neither am I.
Talked about it before. I'm no longer sick. But I've talked about it before where I'm generally, my work outside of this is based at home. That is not the case anymore. So we are both.
Yeah.
When we go to work, we do go out.
For our day jobs, we have to go interact with other people or be around other people. But we both felt under the weather for a couple of weeks. And so we wanted to wait until we felt as close to 100% as we could. And then we are recording right now. So we're back. Yep. And we actually watched quite a bit, although we won't be able to get to every single movie that we watched. Zach, you'll be talking about The Green Knight, I assume. And I'll be talking about something a little bit more recent that came out this weekend. So let's just go ahead and dive into what you watched.
Yeah, so first up, just continuing off of your intro there, we went and saw Green Knight. Before I get too far away from it, I do want to say this was the first time I've been back to a theater since 2020.
Wow.
Like the beginning of I think before the pandemic, The Invisible Man was the last movie I saw in theaters.
That's such a long time.
Yeah. So this was the first time I was back. And I gotta say, I love theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Hated this.
Yeah.
It was like the worst trip back you could possibly imagine.
It was a smaller theater. It was packed.
It was small. It was packed. And like when I bought the ticket, because I bought the tickets for us, when I chose our seats, the only other seats that were taken were 2 other seats. And I bought them on like Wednesday. So I thought, that's a good sign. There's probably not a whole lot of people coming out.
Yeah.
I guess everybody just thought the same thing, and we're like, yeah, fuck it, we'll go out. But then proceeded to not mask up like we were.
Yeah.
I think the only other person I saw that was masked up was literally when I was walking up to the theater. There was like a 95-year-old man with a cane walking up the steps.
Yeah,
who was masked.
And I think, obviously, since our last episode and today when we're recording, not that anything realistically has changed. Numbers have come out, and a lot of people have gotten more and more sick, and of course cases of, and I'm talking about the pandemic that we are still currently in, that never fully went away. People are starting to realize the ramifications of their actions. And so the experience we had with The Green Knight is not necessarily the case that I had at the movie theater this past weekend for a bigger movie.
Well, and I think it's also something to say we went at 7 on a Friday.
Yeah, that's also
and
true.
I think our reasoning was like, oh, it's a smaller movie. There's going to be less people to see it. But I think there's just people are just craving to get out now that, like, if they're not going to go see Jungle Cruise, they're going to go see Green Knight.
Yeah.
I think, and I'll get into this a little bit too, I think the trailer probably had a lot to do with that as well, that they released for the movie.
Good marketing, but misleading.
Yeah. So, yeah, just to reiterate, be safe, make smart decisions. I don't think that whatever we came down with was directly related to that.
I don't think so either.
Neither one of us had COVID, so like
we were vaccinated before, and yeah.
But yeah, just make smart decisions, be safe, as safe as you can, and if something feels off, maybe reevaluate.
Yeah, and quarantine if you can.
Anyway, that's enough soapboxing. Green Knight. So, yeah, this is a retelling of the Arthurian legend of the more or less the same name.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
it's a
That was a pretty good accent.
yeah.
Oh, thank you. High five me.
And it has it's what you would expect if you know a chivalry, like the romantic chivalric poems that it's based on. I think a lot of the issues people are having it because as the reception has kind of not flatlined, but even out over the last couple weeks, you're seeing a lot of people that went in expecting kind of like this more grand adventure, which this movie is not. It is a very, very slow burn.
Oh yeah.
And it takes its time with literally everything. And I myself am not opposed to slow burns, but there are even parts of this movie that I was kind of like, okay, that's a long time to hold a shot there.
Yeah, I actually, and it's been happening not just with slow burn movies, but with some movies that take a lull in the action. And I'm almost 30, but when I'm in a dark theater and I'm like, if I've just gotten off of work that day, especially when I go to the theater, and I'm even slightly tired, if I'm in a dark theater and I'm in a relaxed recliner and I'm like, okay, I'm going to enjoy this movie. If you take a dip in the action even once, I'm going to start like nodding off, or I'm going to start like, this is kind of boring. If you take too long with a shot or too long with a scene, then, but of course that's also just me and my attention span and my sleepiness, I guess.
I think it's a reasonable caveat for it. Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of people who fall asleep in theaters. When I was, when did Fellowship of the Ring come out?
2001.
3? No.
1.
Was it 1?
Yep.
So when I was 11 or 10.
I'm going to actually.
Depending on when
I'll look it up.
What time of the year it was. My mom was the one who took me to see Fellowship of the Ring, which is, of course, the slowest of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies.
December 19th, 2001.
Okay, so yeah, I was 11.
Probably an empty theater that month, too.
For Fellowship of the Ring?
Well, I mean, just that. I mean, the end of the year post 9/11, there was probably not a lot of. I don't know. I could be totally wrong.
Fellowship of the Ring was not an empty theater, ever.
Well, I'm gonna do box office.
My mom took me to see that, and my mom is not known for her interests in high fantasy or Tolkien anything, and of course that's a 3-hour movie. So, yeah, she dozed off on that one. She wasn't a fan.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But I was.
Do you know what opening weekend Fellowship of the Ring made?
Let's go with.
I'll give you a percentage of its total gross. 15%.
I'm gonna guess 600K.
600,000 for its opening weekend for Fellowship. Yeah. You were just lauding it.
I was just lowballing it.
Come on.
No, sorry.
I'll give you another guess.
I also just woke up from a nap.
Oh, okay. Let's just show our age. Hey,
okay, I'm going to go with
80 mil. 80 mil. Incorrect. 47.2 million. Not bad for its opening weekend back in 2001. I don't know if that's adjusted for inflation, but overall, its adjusted inflation for the domestic box office was 505 million, which is, for a high fantasy film, not bad. That's very good. Although the entire adjusted inflation domestic box office is the current budget for the first season of the Lord of the Rings TV show. So
well, that's like fucking.
It's literally like 500 million.
Oh my gosh! It's like every month a production thing comes out about the Lord of the Rings Amazon show.
Is it just
like, holy shit?
Is it just not astounding to you that leaks have not come out for that show? Like any production leaks?
Quite frankly, I don't think there's a whole lot to show. It's just a bunch of people, because it's no one connected to the.
No, but like any news about any new Lord of the Rings fans or media, and the fans would just blow up the internet for it.
I think it's it's a a matter of just getting like mixed up with it? Because I feel like every month is a negative. There's a negative news story about that show.
Really?
Yeah, where like something on production has gone wrong. They're not paying people correctly. Some cast members have been dropped or some shit. Like, it is a fucking trash fire over there.
Wow.
From all accounts. And so I don't know if anyone's really wanting to release any of that, that stuff from this stuff that they can't, you know.
Well,
like,
the people who leak production stills are not people who work on the production and don't want to avoid bad PR. They're fans of the property that happen to work on the production. That's that's always the case, because like the leaked photo of Moon Knight's costume came out and people were losing their minds, good and bad.
Yeah.
And that's such a smaller property compared to Lord of the Rings, so
could be that just people don't care.
I guess, and we're also in that superhero fever, sort of. Yeah. Anyway, back to Green Knight.
Yeah, so Green Knight. I definitely get the sense that if you are as you are, and susceptible to dim lights and low tones and
quiet scenes,
not really a whole lot to focus on, then yes, you might find yourself drifting off.
A cooler room. Yeah.
That being said, it is a beautiful film.
Oh yeah, it's A24.
Yeah, and the director, I think I
David Lowery, who directed Pete's Dragon, and more famously, more well known, A Ghost Story.
Yeah. The amount of care and attention that he puts into every shot, it's very purposeful. And like, this is clearly something that he grabbed and was like, this is something I really want to do, and I want to put my own thing on it. I think the issue is, it's kind of like that issue that some writers have with editors, like they say like an editor will be able to parse down someone's writing to where it's more palatable for the most amount of people. Sometimes you lose some of that, extra stuff that makes it your own. But in terms of getting people through what you've written down, it's gonna make it more accessible.
Right.
And I think that's kind of what we have here, is that there's not really an editor parsing as much as they could be. And it is very much still, at least from what it seems like, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes for these projects unless somebody comes out, a couple of years later is like, man, that was a fucking trash fire.
For this movie specifically, or
for just in general, like you usually unless something really bad is going on set or something like that, or like they've had a dozen rewrites on something, you usually don't really get a hold of any production troubles or like behind the scenes arguments or that kind of thing until a couple years after a project is done and released or canned or whatever happened.
Right.
But from my accounts, looking at the Green Knight, it looks like by and large this is pretty much what he would want on screen. There's not really a whole lot going on in terms of trimming. Like this is too much.
Right. It was all very succinct, very purposeful in its cinematography and its editing.
Yeah, it's purposeful. I wouldn't say it's succinct, but which I think is part of the problem. Because like I can imagine a scenario where you as a director are going, no, this shot needs to hang there for an extra 5 seconds, or an extra 20 seconds sometimes in the case of this movie.
And it happened more than once, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah. But in the case of like having someone come in and parse it down, like you would be able to cut that shot down more from like, it's the length it is of like 45 seconds down to 20 or whatever, and you would still have ostensibly the same effect.
Right.
It's not like you don't have to have these like jump cuts, because that's when like editing gets too bad. That's like the for
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Talk about the wait, what?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody, or even not the recent Suicide Squad, but the David Ayer's Suicide Squad from years back. That's how you get that kind of editing, where it's just all slapdash and like, no, just get everything that
the money shots
for plot, the action scenes in there, and then call it a day. So it's a nice balancing act that you have to pull off, and I think this kind of tends more into the excessive realm. And if you're not like really patient with that sort of thing, if you're the type of movie watcher that goes like, oh my god, like come on, then this might not be the movie for you. But again, very beautiful. Music is great. Cinematography is great. Dave Patel, who plays Gawain, does amazing.
Okay, so you're sticking with Gawain, not Gawain.
I'm going with what they say in the movie.
Which is, and I do like and it's another A24 film, but The Witch, where they use kind of the dialect and the accents of the time and of the region. And I just love little bits of, like, they could have just done British accents, they could have done American accents, and nobody would have fucking cared. The general audience wouldn't have cared. General audience. But I love the attention to detail when it comes to stuff like that, because it shows that everyone involved in the production cared, especially the writers and directors. And
right. And then just to wrap it up real quick, I actually talked about this longer than I thought I was going to. I think that the main point that needs to be focused on is do not trust those trailers.
Right. Yeah. Bad.
Really good trailers for if you did not release this movie. If it was just the trailer and nothing came of it, then that would be a really good trailer. But because the trailer is attached to an actual movie, a terrible trailer does not actually convey the actual like mood and pacing of the movie. So keep that in mind. It is much of more of a slow burn. I mean, it's a ancient romantic chivalric poem that has a moral to the story, and it is not a like oh, swords go bang,
no, it's not a Gladiator like we were talking about before. No, it's not a Swords and Sandals. It's not even a King Arthur from like 2005, was it? I think I forgot who directed that one. The one with Clive Owen.
Oh.
Or I mean, King Arthur by Guy Ritchie, same thing. But it's not one of those stereotypical type of King Arthur tales.
It's not an action romp at all. Is there to let you sink into it,
right? So like a fable, basically.
I enjoyed it for what it was. I think there are definitely pacing problems with it for sure, but I still very much enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything for the most part that was on screen and all the performances. But yeah, your mileage may vary for sure.
Yeah, the only things that I'll add, just to tack it on to the end of yours, I agree with every sentiment that you have. Basically, the only problems that I had with it were some pacing issues towards the end, and some establishing shots that again could have been cut down just a little bit, just a smidge, and have the same effect. Visually, of course, it's picturesque. It's very much supposed to invoke classic. I'm blanking on the actual time period that it's called, but the King Arthur type of drawings that you see in classic literature, and it's supposed to invoke those kind of feelings for you. So again, mileage may vary, just like you said, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And then moving on, the other thing I watched, I actually did get around to watching the new Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad.
Yes.
Right. We've actually talked about this before recording. I did mention this. We have in our group chat, in our group of friends.
You had watched it before, but I just watched it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I have not talked about it to anyone.
Gotcha. So this will be all news to me. So go ahead, sir.
So the Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn, kind of a mishmash of a sequel / redo.
Sequel, reboot.
Don't pay attention to the other one.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But if you did, here's some stuff in there for you. I know you had said to me previously that you were not a huge fan of this movie.
I feel isolated. I feel like I'm on an island of me and a handful of other people who just came out the other side going, like, I don't understand a lot of people's praise for it. Honestly, I think it's a lot of fandomization, but I don't know if that's the right word. I just feel like there was a lot of people who were just already going to enjoy this film and consider it a masterpiece just based on the pedigree of the team behind it. Yeah. And while I did enjoy parts of this movie, I came out of it going, I mean, it's better than the 2016 Suicide Squad for sure, because that had a lot of
that's a low bar to clear.
Yeah, so I mean,
Academy Award winning.
It was a low bar to clear for all of the other DC movies. Like, I think the one I would put below this movie that a lot of other people have as well is Birds of Prey, and even then, it's not like that was trying to do anything new or fresh either.
Yeah.
So sorry, I didn't want to.
No, you're good. So I think we're kind of on the same wavelength, other than like overall, I think we are, but we're skewed slightly. Right? Like I think we're both like kind of in the middle, but you're kind of skewing more towards like a meh. Yeah, I'm skewing more. To me, I skew more towards a that's the
but
that's the scientific.
Put it on the DVD, folks. You know, how do you write that? I don't know. Just type it.
Did you ever read GamePro magazine?
Way back in the day. That was one of the first video game magazines I had.
I'm pretty sure that was the one that had the faces for its rating.
Yeah, it was like 3 different little emojis, and one was like angry face, the other one was like, and the other one was like, and it was like, yeah.
I feel like we need to make a couple of like little transparent like head versions of us.
Yeah.
Put, like little DVD cases. So no,
3 Zach heads out of 5.
Anyway, yeah. So I came out of this feeling more positive about it, I think, than you did. I think it is it's not a like, oh my god, this is amazing and life-changing kind of movie. I think it's still lower in terms of pedigree of both Guardians movies.
Right.
But that being said, I do think of the DC movies I have watched, which I will remind people that I am woefully missing a large portion of the DCEU experience, just because I haven't watched everything.
I think you've only watched, what was it? It was Batman v Superman? Was it?
Nope. I've watched Man of Steel, which coincidentally I did not watch until like a year or two ago. I watched Suicide Squad, the David Ayer Suicide Squad, which coincidentally again was the first DCEU movie I watched. I guess like, do you count Batman Begins and Dark Knight? I wouldn't.
Wait,
like,
which one?
Something like Batman Begins and like the Nolan.
No, those don't. Those aren't.
Right? Yeah.
They don't count. No.
All right, so yeah, shove those off to the side.
We miss you.
So, Suicide Squad, Man of Steel. I did watch Birds of Prey, and now I've watched the Suicide Squad.
Can you believe Birds of Prey came out last year?
I know, man. Like, it's crazy to think about like that beginning block of movies that just kind of like amorphosized into nothing but everything at the same time. It's very strange.
Margot Robbie has played Harley Quinn more times than any one actor has played Joker. Live action, I should say. So that's insane to me.
I'm personally, I think she's good.
She's good. No, I mean, she's one of those actors who people are just like, she's Harley Quinn, like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man.
Exactly.
The only downside to all of this, and this is all tied into your review. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack, but the only downside to that is that she's like, I want to take a break from her. So a lot of people are not. I don't think they've wrapped their heads around that as a statement, because they're expecting a Gotham City Sirens still, which I believe was canned.
Yeah, from last time I heard, I did see that pop up where James Gunn answered a question about whether he was directing. I'm like, is that still a thing?
Yeah, exactly. So even he was like, what?
But that's the thing. Not to get too far from the point of which is the reviewing the movie, but that's the crazy thing about the DCEU is that it is such a it's like what would happen if Sony continued to try to do the Amazing Spider-Man universe that they were wanting to do before with like Sinister Six and all that. Mm-hmm. But then like changed DC has changed trajectories on what they are doing with this universe so many fucking times. Like first it was going to be, an MCU style everything's connected thing. Then it was going to be like, oh, well, these are connected, and then all these other ones are not connected. And now it's like this mishmash between that and like, oh, but also there's Elseworld titles in there.
Yeah, they're connected, but only by the actors themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the Black Adam. The Black Adam movie is the one that's like completely throwing me off because I feel like they're taking a page not only from the MCU but also from Sony with its Venom movie. Which was successful enough to where they're like, I mean, we all kind of want Dwayne The Rock Johnson to play a superhero character. Why don't we have him play a character that he wants to play? Villain / anti-hero character that not a lot of people know. Okay, all right. Give us about 5 to 6 years, and we'll get to there in the DCEU.
I feel like that Black Adam has been in development for like almost a decade at this point.
I mean, yeah, I'm just like. When it comes to them actually digging their toes into the sand and actually, let's start doing it, Yeah. Especially the most recently.
There was a couple different tangents away from the review. So yeah, the Suicide Squad, James Gunn. I am more inclined to be on the positive side of it than the negative. It's not like life changing or anything. But I did enjoy what was on, like I wasn't like, I'm kind of bored. I was entertained throughout the whole thing. I feel like everyone did a really good job with their performances. I will say, I don't know if I can get behind John Cena as anything but John Cena, and I don't know if that's just the fact that I've just always known him as a wrestler or what, but like in his bit parts that he's done in, like movies here and there, like he was in Trainwreck, like those are like little bits and they weren't, like full on, major plot roles.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not the only one.
He does have comedic timing, which it's very much the same thing as what he was doing when he was in WWE. Like his style of comedy is pretty similar,
right?
And his delivery, but I think like it's so weird how I'm able to separate The Rock into like, yeah, okay, I still know him as The Rock. Like he's still The Rock, but I can also grab onto him being this character here.
Yeah.
Whereas with John Cena, it kind of just feels like John Cena is
the guy from The Marine
Squad.
Or the guy from I can't even think of any other John Cena movies.
So I don't know if that's just because he hasn't. Honestly, this is his biggest role yet. Besides what was the Hobbs and Shaw, right? He was in that, or was that?
No, that's Fast 9. He's in F9.
Fast 9. I can't.
Wow.
Besides that one, I think this is definitely his biggest role to date. And obviously they're leading into a Peacemaker show.
Mm-hmm.
So, The Rock, when he was first getting started, he was turning shit out like the Scorpion King. So, like he's been on the scene for
The Rundown, Walking Tall.
Hey, The Rundown was
I need a sequel to The Rundown. Yeah.
Walking Tall was actually pretty good. It was.
So I mean, he had a lot of good, decent hits that were coming out in the early 2000s.
I'm talking about his like early repertoire. You're talking about like Tooth Fairy, Scorpion King.
No, Tooth Fairy came out after those. Anyway,
in The Mummy, he wasn't even a speaking role. Like
CGI face.
Yeah, so it just takes some time, I think, and hopefully
Mummy Returns. Sorry.
As Cena is getting more of these kind of bigger roles, that he'll be able to develop his own style, kind of like how Dwayne Johnson has done.
Yeah.
But in this, it was a little hard to see him as anything but John Cena.
That's fair.
The only other person, quote unquote, that I had a slight issue with, and it's not even really an issue, it's just like I like this version better, is I can't forget about Ron Funchess's King Shark from Harley Quinn. So
yeah. Okay, yeah,
so
sorry.
having this like dumb King Shark who just eats
Bird.
everything, it's a good bit in throughout the movie, but it's just like it's kind of one note. With it's Vin Diesel, right?
Are you fucking kidding me?
I don't know. No,
It's still Sylvester Stallone.
Okay, yeah.
How does Sylvester Stallone and Vin Diesel sound similar to you?
They don't, but he says like a total of 20 words throughout the whole fucking movie, which is my point.
Zach is very mad.
Like, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Why are you disappointed in me? You're the one who confused Rocky with Groot, so that's not my fault.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like the version of King Shark they have here is not as fun as the one in the Harley Quinn TV show. I would have really liked to see Ron be able to get that role again, but yeah, it is what it is.
Two different universes.
Yeah. But everyone else, great. As you can imagine, they actually kill a bunch of people in the Suicide Squad movie.
That did not surprise me at all.
Yeah,
that whole opening bit.
Yeah. To the point where you have some, fan favorites, I guess, of the original movie dying within the first, scene.
Again, did not surprise me at all. So when it happened, I was just like, I can't be the only one, and I feel underwhelmed that it was so obviously telegraphed that way. Like, I think a lot of the marketing for this movie showing off how many characters and actors are in it, and I'm like, I know 80% of these characters are not going to live through it, but the trailers, I was going to say the trailers and the marketing show so little of the characters who are obviously barely in it. And you're just like, it's okay. So it's all of them. All of them don't make it because I don't see them in 80% of the trailers. So, but what can you do as a trailer cutter? Honestly,
yeah. And I mean, like, I think they knew what they were doing with that. Is like, oh, look at all these people in this movie with suicide in the title. Like, obviously they're gonna die. So I think people expected that going in. I just don't know if people necessarily expected so many of them to die within the first 15 minutes of the movie. And then the rest of the movie is like this kind of more condensed cast of characters. Idris Elba is great as Bloodsport. Fantastic. He was probably the shining light of the movie for me. Just in terms of like, they do this. I don't know if it's necessarily a dig at the first movie, or is more like a see, this is how we're different. But it very quickly establishes him as a father doing thing. He is not a good father.
Right. I'm the opposite of Deadshot.
I'm the opposite of Will Smith's Deadshot, where he was doing like, oh, I was doing it because I'm a good father, and
I'm just doing what's best.
I misunderstood, and Bloodsport here is like, no, I'm a really shitty dad. And the only reason I'm doing this is because, like, you have gone to the nth degree. Amanda Waller, a great villain for telling the story. It's a very like Bush era administration coming to terms, or like seeing the ills of that sort of way of administering covert ops and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely got that feel of basically that, just secret ops being, it almost made the film seem like it was out of time in a way, or that it was like very much like late 70s, early 80s kind of feel to it. And maybe that was tied into also the color grading and the way that it was shot. A lot of not Vietnam era sort of like footage or whatever, but the way it was like, but just like it just seemed out of time. And I think a lot of the problems that I had weren't just with the acting and the plot sometimes necessarily, but with the way that there are some scenes in there that just seemed extra, and the way that the color grading itself is, tying into my point. But there were just a lot of things that were just off for me that were throwing. I'm like, this doesn't feel like a James Gunn movie to me by the end of it. I felt like I was watching someone else's movie, which is the exact opposite way you should be feeling when watching his stuff, because that was the whole point of him taking control and having total control over this property.
I don't know if I necessarily felt like I was watching somebody else's movie, but it did feel like it was a more diluted version of what we're used to from him. Which, that's not what you generally expect, especially with an R title, you know. And movie is plenty graphic.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of violence. And but there's not quite as much of an edge, I think. And maybe that's just because he's older, you know? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because the last movie he did before this was Guardians 2, wasn't it?
It was
2017.
I'm even thinking back to like stuff like Slither and that kind of
right,
stuff.
But a different genre entirely.
Yeah, but you generally get the same kind of vibe from certain directors and like their stylistic choices, and that is here for me. I feel like that's here. It's just kind of diluted a little bit. It's not as in your face as you would normally expect. But like all the general hallmarks of a Gunn movie are there. You
general hallmarks.
Your soundtrack, your eclectic soundtrack. You have all your humor beats and kind of.
Here's how the first one should have been. That's what this film basically boiled down to me, is that this was kind of a whiteout / scratching out of the original, which I know James Gunn wasn't intentionally trying to do, but that's essentially what the movie's purpose was. Like, hey, forget the other one, like that one that's universally panned, and not because of David Ayer's fault, obviously, but this just seemed like oops, let's try this again.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
And there's definitely a lot of like subverting your sort of expectations of like what a general movie kind of plot. Like there's a whole thing where Harley is talking to this general guy, and like he is okay, we get it.
General guy. Doing a lot.
You want me to acknowledge you? Fine.
You don't have to acknowledge me. No, it's more for me. That's just I do it. I do it in my real life. I just, like, anytime somebody says like, no, generally speaking, but generally, wait, no, not
like
that generally.
3 times in a row.
No, because you keep using the word general, so I'm gonna keep using it.
I'm sorry that my phrasing is setting off your habitual tendency to salute.
Well, stop naming off ranks. Yeah, so Colonel speaking.
Harley is talking to this the what you think at the time is the main villain, so to speak, and he's like kind of going through this whole spiel of like, oh, I'm gonna do this and this and then like it kind of does that thing where midway through the villain's speech, it's like, all right, you're done. And then it transitions to like, no, this is the real guy. But it doesn't do that like at the end of the movie, thankfully. It does it with, I think, enough time to be like, oh, okay, that's the reason you're doing it is for the bit.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff like that in there.
I hated that subplot. The whole Harley hooking up with it. I'm like, when they were doing the whole montage of all of those scenes, like them like, that I was so incredibly like, what fucking movie am I watching? I feel like I'm having a fever dream.
I think that's the problem with Harley, though, and why people were so upset with Birds of Prey and it not being a Birds of Prey movie is Harley is really hard to create a story around where she can't be Harley.
Right.
You know, where especially in like a 2-hour movie, you know, it's one thing if you're doing a comic run and you have, you know, a 12-issue run to kind of flesh out all these things and do different scenes and whatnot. But in a 2-hour movie, you have to get from point A to point B relatively quickly, especially if you have different stops in between there. And Harley is not that kind of character, you know. She's pretty manic, obviously. So I think it's really hard to do a team movie with someone like that, because you want everyone to have their individual moments to shine. And I think, actually, for me, I think this movie does a great job with that.
Yeah.
I think everybody gets a really nice... Even the people who are, like, only in the first 15 minutes of the movie, everyone kind of gets their own bit, you know?
Except for Pete Davidson, which I'm okay with.
No, he definitely has his own bit, and it's probably one of the funnier Pete Davidson performances I've ever seen.
Wow, that's not saying a lot.
Yeah. But they're like, you know, like that whole scene where they're like just kind of sitting they're getting onto the plane, and he's trying.
Are you talking about him reaching for his gun and like fucking with the guard?
No. I mean, that's part of it, but no, just the character in general. I'm not talking about like one singular bit. I'm talking about just like there's enough stuff within the movie for each character to where you get across who they are in pretty quick fashion. And James Gunn is usually pretty good at that. But no, the one I was talking about was the seatbelt, where he's trying to buckle his seatbelt,
yeah.
and then TDK's like, no, you just flip that over.
Yeah, safety first.
Like, what? That's such a weird
I think that's just Nathan Fillion, helping out Pete Davidson. That's the thing. Is I just don't care about, and you're not supposed to care because they die immediately. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, I like Polka Dot Man. I like Ratcatcher. I will die for Sebastian.
Yeah,
that little rat is in my heart.
Hey, he saved the entire MCU. So
he did.
Tying in both of the universes together.
Yeah.
He's just waving.
And I did like Starro. I really wish he was not as much in the trailers as he was.
That would have been a better reveal.
After having watched the movie, when I initially watched the trailer, I was really psyched about Starro. But for some reason, that kind of felt like a middle part of the movie in the trailer. I'm not sure why to me, but that's just kind of how it felt the way it was cut. When in fact, that's like the last
act
of the movie is Starro. And I think it would have been really nice to not have that be in there. But all that said, I liked it. I think it's the best DCEU movie I've seen, having only seen 4 or 5. But yeah.
What a weird eclectic collection of movies.
Yeah. Oh, hey, by the way, this episode's gonna be a little longer, I guess.
No, I was gonna fake you out with like, and I also watch movies. Well, this has been Lights Camera Nonsense, giving you son of a bitch. I did not want to spend that much time on that fucking movie. It sounds like I absolutely hate it. I don't. It had potential to be so much more for me, and I think my expectations were just too high.
And it's also hard. I imagine when everybody's like, "Oh yeah, that was good," or to the extreme of like, "That was amazing," and you're just kind of over here like, "Yeah."
I mean, it was.
Right. But that's the thing with movies. They hit people different ways.
I just felt like I aged a bit. Like I felt like I've finally become a movie critic because I've not fallen in line with the general public. So
well, it's all a gradient too. Like people like to say, oh, you either like it or hate it, but it's not the case. There's varying degrees of like and dislike.
Very true. Like, I mean, we just talked about The Green Knight, and our summation was that not everyone is going to like this. It's not for everybody, and even the marketing itself played into that. Can I finally talk about the stuff that I watched, Zach? Will you allow me that?
No, I'm gonna go take a nap again.
Okay. You old fuck. We're both old men. Yeah. Well, Zach, I was actually quite busy and watched quite a bit.
Let's hit it.
Let's hit it. Okay, I'll go through quite a few that are just a little quick because they were shows or documentaries that I watched. I actually watched a documentary without anyone prompting me to. Wow.
Which one?
I watched, and we talked about this briefly offline, but I watched Val, which is this. What is it called? It's not an autobiography, a self-autobiography. When you do it yourself.
Yeah, it's an autobiography.
Autobiography? Okay, it's a autobiography documentary.
Oh yes, you did tell me about that.
Of Val Kilmer's life, of him growing up and how he got into acting and movies and plays and just the course of his life and how he got to where he is today in the condition that he's in. And when I finished it, I thought, wow, that was a very poignant, sad documentary. But at the end of it, a lot of that documentary was set to show how he is great as an actor and how a lot of people misunderstand him. And he wished that he could have done more. And I'm like, I just come out of this going, I feel more pity for Val Kilmer than I do anything else. And I've always been a big fan of his filmography, save for A Good Couple. And I think you realize the dip in, or I should say, my liking of his movies dipped at a very specific time and then rose at a very specific time because he was going through a lot of life events. Whether it be the divorce of his wife while he was filming The Island of Dr. Moreau, which in and of itself had a lot of production issues that, like we talked about before, culminate in a very troubled film. Yep. But going over like Top Gun, going over very briefly some of the early 2000s films like Red Planet and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I'm personally a huge fan of because... Yeah. I think that film is great. Shane Black, you know better. You know how to make good films. Don't do Predators. Fuck. Be better. Which was also saved by Robert Downey Jr., let's be honest. But yeah, basically my summation of that documentary, which you can actually watch on Amazon Prime Video if you're a fan, and kind of get some cool behind the scenes of his life and of some of the films that he worked on, because he filmed like everything. He was quoted in the beginning as saying, like, I was one of the only families who had a video camera on our block, and I filmed everything with my brothers and made all these yeah, he was very much into acting and filmmaking when he was a kid. So it's very interesting to kind of get this cool behind the scenes look of a specific actor and where he is today.
Yeah, you always run the risk of autobiography being a little self-serving or, skewed, but that's,
I would like, yeah.
The trade-off with that is you are getting these stories directly from
the source.
Person,
yeah.
So, yeah.
I will say that his son, Jack Kilmer, sounds exactly like him. And the reason I know this is because, well, one, he acts, he's an actor, but also because he narrates it due to Val Kilmer's voice being gone because of his chemotherapy treatments. So he narrates most of it, and I'm like, that's just Val Kilmer talking, or young Val Kilmer. Pretty good film, if you're into behind the scenes stuff like that. Another thing I watched is, and I briefly talked about this over the course of last year when I mentioned it in my top 10 list of 2020, I believe, or it was 2019. I believe it was 2020. But it's Dave. It's on FX.
Yeah, I think that was last year. Yeah.
Last year was a fucking. That was back. Back in January.
It was a fucking. 2020 was a fucking.
January 2020. That was back when we were all still doe-eyed and youthful. Back when I made that list, I had watched Dave season 1, and it was phenomenal. A mixture of Seinfeld meets Atlanta meets the sardonic look of like Office Space, kind of a very look at how fucking surreal and dumb life is, and what people who are trying to get into the music and specifically rap business for Dave Bird's. I wouldn't call it like a. It's kind of like just a. it's a not real look at what he probably had to actually have to go through when it comes to becoming a successful rap artist. And it's a lot of him like trying to get gigs and get meetings with like certain record companies, and like all the production issues with like making a rap video and all this kind of stuff, and people not believing in him because he's this pale Jewish guy from SoCal. And it's just it's great because the humor is very much like very lowbrow. Like obviously he wants to name his first album Peanut, which is the zenith of penis humor. And it's very much like if you're not behind the whole self-deprecating or self-depreciation of his own character, who he based off of himself, you're not going to get a lot of it. But I highly recommend people check it out because it's, again, going to be in my top 10 list of this year. I can already say it actually finished last week with the season finale, and chef's keys.
Nice.
Love Gaeta. Gaeta needs to win all of the Emmys. And I never thought I would say that sentence. Talked about Suicide Squad, talked about Green Knight, talked about Val. I also watched Vivo, the latest Sony Pictures animation film.
It's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. It was, the songs, I believe, were written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, as well as the main character's voice is Lin-Manuel Miranda. Let me pull up the actual people behind it. But it's basically about this Kinkajou. Directed by Kirk D'Amico and music by Alex Lacomore. What? I thought he wrote the songs. He probably wrote the songs but didn't do the music. But it's about this Kinkajou in Cuba who is just living out the best of his life with this old retired musician in the square, and it's like, I'm living my life, I'm loving it. And then something happens to where he has to go to Miami and deliver a song to a long lost flame of the old man. And he goes on this journey with this young girl who's a relative of the old man. And it's just kind of a heartwarming adventure musical. You get very Disney Pixar vibes to it, although with a different animation style, of course.
Right.
The music is actually very, very catchy, of course, because
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah, with Lin-Manuel Miranda. Although, I gotta say, quick tangent aside, In the Heights was not very catchy to me. I don't remember any of the songs from that other than like the one that was in the trailer. So I like
some of the songs are they have stuck with me. I think we actually skipped over talking about this. I don't remember talking about this.
In the Heights?
Yeah, I don't recall us ever talking about it, but I don't know.
Oh, I watched it. It was okay.
Yeah, I did too. It was pretty good. Yeah. But I think there are more problems with the general deceit of In the Heights as opposed to the music itself. But anyway, back to your
but basically Vivo is a very family oriented lovely musically driven animated. I had fun, enjoyed it. I watched it based on a whim because originally I thought, Lin-Manuel Miranda again, you know.
He's popular.
He's everywhere. He's literally everywhere. And I thought for his acting performance, he did a great job, of course. I thought, like I said, the songs are really catchy. So I highly recommend it if you've got a youngin' that you want to watch it with. It's great. So there you go. Got an 86 on Rotten Tomatoes, so, it's something. And then, okay, so I could either talk about Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds, and is the number one movie at the box office, I think, at the moment. Got a lot of great video game references. A lot of people are enjoying it. Or I can talk about.
Oh yes, cough.
Let's
hear about it.
Or we can talk about Annette, the film directed by Leo Carax and written by Sparks, the very popular rock band. And it's a musical starring Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. You haven't heard of this.
I've heard of it. No?
That is because it was exclusively released to certain theaters, including the one close to us, and is going to be released on Amazon Prime Video next week. I actually watched this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks early.
Look at you.
So it's up to you. What do you think, Zach?
I'm gonna go with dealer's choice.
Dealer's choice. Fuck, shit. I knew
what do
you were gonna mirror
like
this back to me.
about? What do you feel like talking about? What do you feel in your heart?
Don't ever ask me what I'm feeling in my heart. It's only heartburn. That's the correct answer. Is heartburn.
What helps the heartburn?
Okay, I'll briefly go over Free Guy because I feel like I can surmise that it's a fun, surprisingly heartwarming film starring Ryan Reynolds, who you either love or hate. Most people love. If you hate him, you're a monster.
Is it heartwarming or heartburning?
Heartburning. It's both.
Oh, wow.
In my case, I think that the trailer kind of plays it out to be a very stereotypical, hey, look, gamers, it's a video game movie with video game themes in it.
It doesn't look exactly like that, yes.
It paints it in a very like, oh, we don't really know what we're talking about, but this has YouTubers and Ryan Reynolds is an NPC and he's gonna fight the bad guys, and it's not that. It actually has a very heartwarming. Fuck, I even did it again. Shit.
What's a hand movement I can do for heartwarming? Like,
oh no, that sounds wrong. The audio listeners have no idea what we're doing.
I'll just do this.
No, that's weird. No, but it has a very. I almost said it again. I need to up my.
Yeah, don't cast stones.
My vocabulary.
Your vocab when your vocab is
bad.
Vocab.
Need that on a mug. But I think it has a story that they didn't really market towards because I don't think you really can. That kind of makes it more of an enjoyable film. I think because it could have very easily have been a surface level. Look, here's video game references. Ready Player One, or so more recently Space Jam.
I was gonna ask. I keep seeing this sort of lead-in as a positive, where people will say, "Oh, it's like Ready Player One, but for video games," and to me, that is not indicative of a positive. That makes me not want to watch it because Ready Player One was a slog of a fucking movie. So, like, what is it? Is it good? Is it good or is
it's
it
good?
bad?
I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds in a movie that happens to involve video games. Video game references. I think it's mainly more about his character realizing what his life means and his greater part in everything around him. And when it comes to, I don't know, I'm trying to fucking put this movie on a pedestal. It's fine. It's a good movie that you'll enjoy, and I think that, yeah, there you go. Thank you. Careful.
You say that one enough too, where I can do a movement for that.
A pedestal. Okay. Well, I will say that most people who will go into it not really expecting much will be pleasantly surprised, and I will say that there is a very specific moment towards the end in the climax that made me openly cheer in a movie theater, and I fucking hate people who do that. No, I didn't clap when I saw it. I went, "Oh shit," in a movie theater.
Oh no, that's better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone did. Everyone did when they saw the scene I'm talking about, and you'll know it when you see it. But
I feel like a good oh shit, like if that's placed correctly, that can like make your entire movie going experience.
I mean, it can. That literally, like, imagine all of Avengers Endgame, which was most of those scenes.
Yeah.
And that was basically that moment. And you don't really expect it either, because even in a movie that is going to have video game references and video game moments, or at least cliches, you didn't really expect something like this. And the studio behind Free Guy, 20th Century Studios, that's right, it's both Fox and Disney, pulled out all the stops when it came to property references in this game as well. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think the thing with video game movies is a lot of people will expect, like, going into them, like, this is going to be very surface level. There's not going to be a whole lot of thought put into it. Like, you're going to see some John Halos. You're going to see some Mario. those.
There's a Scorpion Tank.
If they can get them, yeah, you'll probably get
Fortnite.
A Mortal Kombat reference, Fortnite in there. You know, like all these like
there had to have been a Mortal Kombat reference.
Like these base layer ones where the
or just weapons or environments or themes.
Where the publishers are like, yeah, sure, whatever, you can take this. But you know, it like a lot of video game companies are so like protective of their IP for good reason, especially in terms of video game movies, because a lot of the people who are protective of their video game IPs have done video game movies and they did not go well.
They were not good. And that's exactly that's why they're getting more involved in the production of those properties, like Naughty Dog's Last of Us coming out.
So like I think a lot of people have been conditioned to go into these things and think like, well, it's gonna be like some throwaway references, like whatever. That's why when things like Wreck-It Ralph, or from what it sounds like, this Part and Free Guy come about, then people are like, oh shit. Like,
it's very streamlined. Like, they don't highlight very specific moments except for the one I'm talking about that made me go, oh shit. But they somehow did it better than Ready Player One, which had all the reasons to have any and every intellectual property in it other than that final battle scene. They just casually throw in a Mega Man reference, or they just use a sound effect from a video game here. But they're not trying to. It's a movie that happens to be based in a video game that's trying to tell a different story. And I gotta say, just before I finish up my review of this, I didn't mean to take this long. Taika Waititi is the lowest part of this movie, which is odd considering his pedigree over the last few years with Thor Ragnarok and with his involvement of a lot of Star Wars and Marvel properties. But he was so distractingly like cringy in this movie, and I think that was the point of his character. Yeah, absolutely. But like, it was, to me, overwhelmingly so. Like, yeah, I'm like, dude, some of these lines, like, I would slap my boss if he said something stupid like that.
Sounds like Taika Waititi is a gamer, right?
I know he is in a way.
I would slap. Line up, Blizzard.
Oh. Moving on. Free Guys, it's fun. It's only in theaters, so if you need to watch it, if you have a hankering for Ryan Reynolds and video game references, it is in theaters now. And then let me go over Annette, because I kind of want to talk about it, because the music in Annette.
We already said it was gonna be a little longer. It's not that much longer.
Oh yeah, no, I don't care at this point. Fuck it. Yeah. Annette, directed by Leo Carax. This is actually his first English language film, because he's normally creating over in Europe. He more famously did Pola X and Holy Motors, which you've probably seen in your friend who happens to be a film school student. He probably has one of these movies, because they're very lauded for their cinematography and general weirdness. Like, think of like any French art independent film, and it's got that feel of it. Like, I don't want to spoil certain moments of this movie, because I think that people should check it out with little to no going. Like, I bought the ticket because I wanted to go to the movies, and I was bored that day, and I went shopping, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go see a movie. What's playing right now? Oh, I've seen that. I go to the movies too often. It's an addiction. I need help. I've seen that. What is Annette? And I could have looked it up. I could have went, maybe I should check this out. I just saw the poster. I'm like, fucking Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard, Simon Helberg from Big Bang Theory. What is this? And then it said musical. I'm like, all right, fuck it. Went in, sat down, movie started playing, and I realized that it was written by Sparks and was supposed to be originally a conceptual album that they ended up writing a screenplay for. And if you've never heard Sparks, first off, listen to their music if you haven't already. Great, fantastic, catchy songs. I don't want to try to sing one I can't sing, but if you are a fan, then you're definitely going to get that vibe from the music of the music in this film is not like stereotypical musicals. It very much plays like every scene is like a music video in a way.
Interesting.
But basically,
that makes sense if it was a concept album,
right? But where I will say that it also plays off like it's a stage play as well.
Okay.
because a lot of the scenes feel very they're shot in a very specific way to make it seem like it's disorienting, that it could be set on a stage. There are literal scenes set on literal stages because both of the main actors play performers. Adam Driver plays a very Bo Burnham style of musical slash surrealist comedian, and Marion Cotillard, who I will never say her name correctly, is his fiance, who happens to be a opera singer, and they're both very successful, and then things happen in their lives to where one of their careers starts spiraling, and I'll just say it, Adam Driver's character starts spiraling, and he starts to become jealous of his wife. They have a kid together, and things start happening to where tragedy happens.
Is this just Marriage Story, the musical?
Shh, don't think about it. Don't think about it, because I don't want to involve Scarlett Johansson in this. But I will say that a lot of the music is so weird, because it's not music that would normally stick in your ear like an earworm. Like a literal earworm. Get that thing out of there. Gross. But it is, and
that little thing they put in Neo's belly button.
Yeah,
in the Matrix.
That was a belly button worm. Common mistake.
But you could put it in the ear.
I mean, you could put it in any orifice, but
if a worm can go in the belly button, it can certainly go in the ear.
That's true. That's true. I don't know much about the human anatomy, but I assume that's correct. The ear goes directly to the belly button, so
exactly. It's just a straight line.
Straight line.
That's what you hear with your stomach.
Oh, fuck. It's such a horrible, horrifying image. But I will say that if you're... I don't know how to recommend this movie to somebody, because it plays with your expectations.
Well, it sounds like the less you know, the better.
Yeah, that's because when I went into it, I had literally no expectations and came out of it going, that was interesting. Like I had a lot of fun with it. It's just a touch too long. There are a couple scenes that could have... I can't say a couple scenes that you can cut out, because there are songs included in those scenes that I still thoroughly enjoy. So it's just a matter of like, what do you want to smush down here?
It's that balancing act again that we started with.
Yeah. So, and that's especially harder for musicals when it comes to cutting stuff, because then you're cutting the entire work of not just the people working on it visually, but the audio team behind it, and the writers, who are a very famous band. So, I will say, if you're interested in any of what I talked about, I mean, it's Adam Driver singing, who's not the best singer, but he's better than Ryan Gosling from La La Land. I'll say that. And I enjoyed it. I think if you want to check it out, you can look up the trailer on YouTube, or you can just wait for it to come out on Amazon Prime Video and watch it then. I think it's actually the 23rd.
Okay, yeah, coming up.
Yeah, so next week, I think. But interesting. I know it's kind of a weird way to end the podcast this week, but Zach steamrolled all of my time, so.
Well, hey, look, here's my thing.
Fucking talk about Green Nine Suicide Squad.
Fuck you. Every time we sit down, you chastise me for going overtime. We take way more tangents off my shit than we do off of yours. So I don't want to fucking hear it.
Only because I want to be included in it's a conversation, sir. You don't ever watch any of the things I watch.
But if you're part of the conversation, then you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem.
We're both each other's problem. Let's be honest. Exactly. We're not very conducive for each other's watching habits, are we? Well, unless I force you to go see The Green Knight in theaters and then expose you to horrible viruses.
You're gonna get sick. So
I thought we agreed that we're not connecting the two. I think it was more me being in proximity to you because I was probably potentially already sick.
Hey, that scene in Suicide Squad when Peacemaker and Bloodsport are going through the little camp and killing everyone.
Yeah.
And then they get to the base and they're like, "Oh no, those are the freedom fighters." That was a good bit.
I actually hated that bit.
Oh, come on!
No, I enjoy the idea of that bit, but here's the thing: I didn't want to deconstruct this movie with you because I knew you'd be like, "Why didn't you like that?" Because, dude, they're causing huge ass explosions and not a single guard screams for help like when they're trying to shoot these guys.
Well, no one blows up. The only person that blows up is the one that
One guy catches fire.
up. Well, there's a guy that like shatters from the inside, but nobody blows up. They're not firing grenades.
What is shattering from the inside, Zach?
Well, you know exactly what
That's
it means.
blowing up in my definition.
You there's not an explosion though.
Literally, a tower falls down to the ground with a guy falling out of it, who doesn't scream, by the way. And so when they get to the table and they're like, "Hey, Joel Kinnaman, we're here to save you," and he's like, "No, I'm fine. I'm with the good guys." And you're like, "How did you not hear any of that?" Right next to the tent.
It's a good bit though. I'll sacrifice it for the bit.
It's literally the suspension of disbelief is too high for me not to have been like.
There's a giant fucking starfish.
Not at that point in the movie. If you throw everything that you didn't, if everything that you know about that movie at that point.
At that point in the movie, there's a man who shoots polka dots from his hands.
Yeah, who didn't help, by the way, at all.
He did. He helped a little bit. Look, he had issues.
Yeah, he did, and I feel like he was one of the. And they just kind of glazed over his death very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, they don't handle any of the deaths with like any sort of like
compassion.
Oh,
no, except for the characters who were supposed to be endearing.
I think it's another bit. So.
I mean, do they? Because like you think King Shark dies at one point, and everyone's really sad for a second. And the same thing with.
I never once thought King Shark died.
Oh, he gets like He gets like ripped to shreds by piranhas and then shot a whole bunch of times.
Yeah, but he's alive in both of those scenes.
You don't know that at the time when it's happening.
He's moving in both of them.
Rick Flag dies and there's sad music.
Yes.
I don't give a fuck about that guy.
Damn, spoilers. Shit.
Oh, yeah, shit, my bad. This has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense, keeping you updated despite our best efforts. Make sure to tune in every week. We promise we will be more consistent. No, shut up. I promise we will be more consistent in the future. In fact, you will hear it here first. We're going to start recording live in person, Zach, very, very soon. In the actually next couple of weeks. Yeah. I'm promising you that now.
Don't make promises you can't keep.
Well,
promises.
I will make promises. Zach, if people wanted to message us and tell us, "Hey, where the fuck have you been, you fucking dick? You son of a bitch. Why, you hairy ass white fuck." They could be talking about either of us. Where have you been?
Well, if you would have sent a very strangely
aggressive message,
aggressive email, and it makes me not want to respond to you, you can send that over on our Patreon, patreon.com/lightscameranonsense, or you can email us directly and we will read your question or weird angry letter here on
Please leave us angry messages so that we can read them live on the show. We want to give you all of the attention that you think you deserve.
And that is at lights.
Oh my god. Questions at lightscameranonsense.com. Email in. Tell us what you think about all of the movies you've been watching, and we want to talk about that with you all live on the podcast.
Yeah.
Also, we have a merch store at store.lightscameranonsense.com. Constantly being updated, I promise. store.lightscameranonsense.com. Make sure to tune in every week for all the latest news, reviews, and what else. Oh, okay. I thought the sound cut out for a second. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you for the next trash fire. Oh, is that you on fire?
Yeah.
You've clearly never been on fire before.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think